God, John, you know, you think about it, times where you've got tens of millions of viewers that are tuned to the tube, maybe not all watching the Today Show, but tuned to the tube about a big issue. And you know, anything you say or do or go off script, I mean, it could cause some real issues there. As you shared that, if your tip had been wrong, you know, your career could have been in the toilet, as opposed to where your tip was right. And so you've really got to be, when you're doing news story and not necessarily just reading a cue card or a monitor there, I mean, you've really got to be on your toes.
You do, but I love the feeling you get from live television.
Right.
Because you really do have to be on your toes, and it only goes by once.
Yeah.
And there it is, and you said it, and it's out there. So you do have to be careful. But I like the adrenaline that flows when they would say 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds at 7 o'clock every morning for the Today Show.
Right.
And then we would go. Sure, we made mistakes. There's one morning I thought the only thing we ever rehearsed on the Today Show was the open, just the open.
Is that right?
And Jane would open, Jane Pauley and Bryant Gumbel or Bryant, and then they would say, now let's go to the news desk and John Palmer. And that was kind of the end of the rehearsal.
Right.
And I'd say, checking the mic, hello, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. So the next one morning I thought we were just doing the rehearsal. We were live. I didn't realize that somehow I was sleepy or didn't think. And they said, now let's go to the news desk and John Palmer. And I said, howdy doody, and stopped like that.
No.
Like I totally lost my mind. And then I saw the floor director pointing like that, live. He was saying live, live. And I thought, wow, that may have been my last day on the stage show. But everybody understood. That's live television, as they say, which is exciting and fun. I love to watch.
What was it like for your girls knowing their daddy is on live TV at 7 a.m. and, of course, on the Today Show broadcasting to millions, or even you and your wife talking about it?
I don't think I was any different than Bozo the Clown or anybody else. I was just somebody in the neighborhood, and the television was just, of course, they grew up with television.
Right, sure.
And it's just a thing like a piece of furniture, and I think for a long time they thought everybody's daddy goes to work in his own television. Yeah. One time my daughter thought when we lived in New York and I was doing the Today Show, she thought I worked for the railroad, because she would go with her mother to pick me up at the train.
No.
And I got off the train coming back from New York, and she thought I worked on the train.
The first grade teachers is when your daddy does, when he works on the train. That's right. That's right.
Pick him up every day.
And in courting your wife, that must have been kind of a funny thing, being on air at that time. I guess you were in broadcasting when you all met. Do you remember that?
Yes, I certainly do remember it. I was traveling with Pope John Paul, and he had an open-air mass in Washington. My wife, Nancy, was working for NBC at the time.
Is that right?
And she was on the platform, and she says, I don't recall this, but I turned to her and said, dear, could you get me some coffee? She said, that's the only thing you spoke that day to me. I remember her as being quite lovely and so forth, but when I came back after a few months, then transferred to Washington and to the White House, then we met again, and one thing led to another. Our first date, incidentally, was for the state luncheon for the King and Queen of Belgium.
Is that right?
Every time during a tour of the White House, the new president will select a few correspondents to come and be guests. Well, I'd covered lots of state luncheons and state dinners, taking notes from behind a potted palm.
Right.
But here I was invited as a guest, so I invited Nancy, my wife, who was. It was very, very fortunate this happened this way, because she was very involved with someone else. Very close to getting married to somebody else.
John.
Yeah, I was a late comer in on that, so I thought, perfect. She can't turn down a very innocent lunch at the White House. So she came down, but I didn't realize that you don't sit with the one who brung you. Some handsome Marine captain comes, takes her by the arm, takes her across the room.
No.
I sit on the other side. They figure, you know, you want to sit with different people so you can talk with your spouse afterwards. But this was our first date.
No.
So anyway, one thing led to another, and we have 3 children, been married 26 years.
I know. What about that poor guy? What happened? How did you...
he's a friend. He's a friend. He's a friend. He is
he tells
and he's
me
married happily with kids.
That's fascinating. That is a great... we've just got a couple of minutes, John, and of course for viewers who... You probably have folks checking out on a regular basis now at Retirement Living TV. I think it's RL.TV.
RL.TV. It's a pretty good website, and you can see a real sampling of all the programs that we have.
Oh, yeah.
I do 3 programs. I do a political program, and I do a financial program with Lee Thompson, who used to be on NBC Dateline as their consumer reporter. And I do one I really love. It's just like this program. It's called Encore, and I talk to various people about their lives. Often people who did one thing during the first part of their life, kind of retired maybe, as I did for a while, and then came back and decided to do something else. So we've got Jack Valenti talking about what life was like. He was in the motorcade when Kennedy was shot.
Yes.
People that have experienced all of these things that are doing different things now. So they're all fun programs.
That's Encore with John Palmer.
Right.
And the great thing is that folks take the time to visit www.rl.tv. They can see many of your interviews streamed. I went on there early this morning and saw there was one with a woman who had twins at 51.
Oh, that was Andrea Barbeau.
Right. She was very interested in going on there, and then also going through the site and clicking it on and seeing Erickson Communities, I believe, the group that is very involved in retirement living, and then visiting the Erickson Tribune, going a little deeper into the website and seeing some very interesting connections. Seems like a great group to be with.
It is a great group to be with. I didn't know anything about it till last August, and I got this call. And it was just the starting up of retirement living in September. Right. And after all, we have about 10,000 baby boomers a day that are joining this 55 and older group, and that's what we on Retirement Living are looking at, people programming for people 55 and older, as opposed to the advertisers who say, unless you're 18 to 34, you ain't got no money or whatever. Well, older people, senior citizens, do have money and to spend and so forth. And so it would be attractive and is attractive to advertisers. But our programming is we don't do shuffleboard shows. Right. We talk about stem cell research, the war issues, and all kinds of health and medical and travel stories and what have you. Sure. Even a cooking show we're starting out.
Is that right, a cooking? Now, is that when you're going to be hosting?
No, I'm not going to do that.
That's not Cooking with John.
No, it's not. No.
But Encore with John Palmer, of course, most of our viewers here at 7 a.m. opposite the Today Show, or anyone who has the ability to sit here for 30 minutes and watch, or if they're running family off to school or getting off to work, they have an opportunity. Most of them are 55 plus, as a matter of fact, that have the opportunity to sit through. In addition, our viewers who are watching us on DirecTV can tune into DirecTV channel 364 to get a sense of what retirement living TV is all about. Which is great.
I keep forgetting that number. You had it
364. That's right. I think a producer from RL had mentioned that how many days in the year?
365. 364.
Take one off. I love it. Exactly. Glad David threw that in. Glad he threw that in. You know, it's so exciting to have the opportunity to get somebody back to the Grand Strand who now heads down to Charleston a lot and somehow probably misses. You were in town, I guess, about 10 days ago for a big event that was held.
A very important event. Lieutenant Governor Andre Bauer brought together the people from the federal, state, and local level to attack a huge problem, and that is this number of baby boomers. 78 million are baby boomers there are. And we're going to have by, how do I like this statistic, by 2035, we're going to have about 210 million people over 65. So the states have to plan, the federal government has to plan assisted living, what kind of programs, how do we reallocate the funds and money that is now available to help seniors. It's a problem now, and it's a solvable problem, but as this population grows, it's going to be necessary to take a lot of changes and make a lot of changes and educate people really into where they can go for services and things of that nature. And that was the purpose of this conference, and I'm sure they're going to be held all over the country.
Oh, yeah. The Lieutenant Governor was in town and some other fascinating statewide elected officials. I know it aired on Retirement Living TV earlier this week on Tuesday, but it'll be running some more. So
yes, indeed.
Viewers could visit, again, rl.tv, or, of course, go to DirecTV channel 364 and see when it may be coming up. You've got a great schedule there, a tremendous lineup there with Retirement Living.
Well, thank you, Gray.
If you were not, think about it, if you had not been with your nose right up on the glass there, looking at the printing press, or gotten that bug, the excitement about becoming a reporter, John, what do you think you would have gone into had you not gone into being on the air?
I know what I almost did. And I said this one time, we have what we call a co-op period on the Today Show.
Right.
And that's where every half an hour for 5 minutes, usually the 25-minute after the hour and the 5-minute before the hour, the local station would cut away and do their local news. So we'd fill it because some stations just didn't take that.
Right.
And Bryant Gumbel asked exactly the same question. He said, well, if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing? I said, I know what I would do. I would be a charter boat captain. I'd be a fisherman.
Charter boat captain?
I would be. I'd have my own fishing boat, and I'd take parties out because I love to fish so much.
Right.
And people always do well or better at things that they love to do. And I thought I'd probably be a good captain because I'd love it so much. Lo and behold, I didn't realize how many stations were carrying that. I must have had 300 or 400 letters from people who said, Mr. Palmer, come buy my boat. And I said, why is the business so bad? But all of these guys wanted to get out of the charter captain business. So then I started thinking maybe that's not what I should be doing.
I love it. John, thanks so much for being with us this morning. It's been a
pleasure.
lot.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with John Palmer coming up next. Wish you could have heard him off camera sharing, and he didn't use the word family, but it's all about family. The excitement there. Think about that. The youngest of 3 kids and surrounded by women his whole life. The youngest of 3, 2 older sisters. Married to a woman for 20-plus years now. 3 daughters. The excitement there for him as he's asked that simple question of what he'd be doing if he wasn't in broadcasting. He didn't say that it was his father encouraging him to get into fishing and taking him out fishing, but it was that experience with his dad. The love of being out near the water, fishing. It made him think when Greg Gumbel or Bryant Gumbel asked that question, I'd want to be a charter boat captain. It all goes back to family. You can see the family at Retirement Living TV. Take the time to go online to rl.tv or check out DirecTV channel 364. It's all about family.